All right, good to go. Driving home the post game for the second game of the year on November 21st. A lot to talk about in this game. Number one, my partner did not make it until 15 minutes after the game was supposed to start. Apparently he had a flat tire, so we held up the game for 10 minutes and then we went ahead and started. Now I started the game as the solo referee, and it's not something you have to do. A lot of people don't like to do that. I've done it many times, so I went ahead with it, and my partner showed up about 4 minutes into the game at a point when I'd already called 4 fouls on one team. So obviously we did not have a pregame, which it was a problem in that one team came out really aggressive and laid 4 fouls. I called 4 fouls on them right away. Stop it, Mookie, please. I called 4 fouls on them right away, and they were also up 9-2. So they were up and much more aggressive than the other team was at that point. But they got aggressive as well, and then the game turned around. So, but it was one of those games. So both teams played a zone defense, and yet we had about 44 fouls. Both teams were in the penalty in the first half. Both teams were in the penalty by the end of the third quarter in the second half. So we had a lot of fouls, and both teams played a zone. So it was a short court, little hully-gully, a lot of unnecessary fouls, really not a very high-level game. Now, so I think we did a good job, though, and I'll tell you why. There's a couple things I did poorly, and one thing that I think my partner could have done better. But why it was a good game, I think it paid off for me tonight to get there early and get on that floor, because both teams were there. It was a tournament, so neither team had the home court. So I was able to talk to both coaches, keep them informed of the status of my partner, and actually show them my humanity, and get the table together, get all that table together. I had to train a couple people on the table. It did become a problem, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But because the coaches, we talked basketball, and I was able to relate to them about their season, about their players, they saw me as a person first. So not always do we get a chance to do that, but whenever I do that, it seems to really help the game go smoothly, because there were some things that happened in this game that could have really made the game get ugly and out of hand and go sideways, but it didn't happen. I'll give you an example of another time this happened. It was a playoff game, actually, a couple years ago, and it was a Friday afternoon, and my partner literally was an hour and 15 minutes late. But during that hour and 15 minutes, I spent time talking basketball with the coaches, both coaches. So I got, around both coaches and talked, and that was a heck of a game with a lot of whistles, a lot of contact. But it was okay. And tonight was the same thing. Now, when my partner did show up, he saw that we had 4 fouls on one team right away. So he called a couple fouls, maybe 2 or 3 fouls that really were 50-50 fouls. I mean, they weren't obvious. They didn't really have to be called. The game was a physical game. And so you're not going to call a touch foul when these guys are calling, or these guys are making pretty physical plays. So that brings up a topic which I will talk more about as the season goes along, which is the idea that you want to even things up, or the subconscious or unconscious need for a referee to balance things out, whether the foul situation or because the score is disparate, you start calling the game differently to give the team that's behind or the team that has not committed any fouls, you start calling fouls on them. And I thought my partner did that. And I think if we'd had a pregame, we would not have done that, because the fouls that I laid on the one team to start, they deserve those fouls. Those are legitimate fouls. And so I was a little upset about that. I didn't get upset, but we didn't hear any flack. The coaches did not give us flack for those calls, and the fans that were there were fine at this point. The fans were actually just fine. Now, to start the second half, we had a play right away. Inbounds the ball to the blue team. They passed it around, and I checked the clock. Clock's not running. So I gave a count, 2, 1, 2. Clock's still not running, so I blew the play dead. Now, as I was blowing the play dead, simultaneously a team went up to shoot the ball. A guy got undercut, got knocked down, and the opposing team got the rebound. So by the time I blew the whistle, saw the clock wasn't running, blew the whistle, stopped the game, White had possession of the ball. Now, this could have been very problematic, because the guy was fouled on a three-point shot, and I had blown the ball dead as the ball was in flight. So, and the guy had a complaint. The player had a complaint. I said, you know what? You're right. But I had to blow the ball dead because the clock had not started. The shot clock and the game clock had not started. So I blew the ball dead, and the opposing team had possession, and we gave it to them out of bounds. That could have really ticked off the coaches, and I later apologized for that call. Now, of course, the table was responsible because they didn't start the game, they didn't start the clock, they didn't get it going. But I should have given the ball to blue, and I probably should have started the half over, since the half really didn't start fairly. And the fact that White got the ball really didn't sit well for me. And I know that if I was the coach of the blue team, I would have been pretty pissed. But what that did do, and I did talk with my partner afterwards, and we really didn't come to any agreement on that. But what it did do is it got the fans excited. So we started hearing it in the crowd, and this could have really gotten out of control, because what happens when the crowd is virtually silent except for a few vocal people, that can incite the players and other people in the crowd to really gang up against us. And they were pretty vocal after that. But the players were okay. We had a couple incidences of, I think my partner teed a guy up for saying that was a bullshit call. That was when the game was already decided at the end. But I will give us credit that we called what we had to call. We addressed and had open communication between both coaches. There were, like I said, in the second half, there were 23 fouls in just the second half. So I bet we had 40. We had 40 fouls. So we had a lot of whistles, a lot of contact, and both teams are playing a zone. But we managed the games, we managed the coaches. I'll give the coaches credit, because if they had taken the lead of the fans and started berating us and getting on us, it could have gotten ugly. But it didn't. So I told my partner we dodged a bullet there and got out without having to run. We were able to walk out of the gym. The team that was up early gave the lead away. White came back, tied the game up, and then Blue pulled away at the end. So the team that was supposed to win won. There was a couple calls that I thought we could have made but didn't. But I didn't hear it from either side. So again, I think that goes back to having a good rapport with the coaches to start the game. So anyway, not pretty. Sometimes it's not pretty. I don't feel great about the way it happened because inevitably we weren't ready to go as a crew. And then there were a couple glaring mistakes. So I don't like to fail. I don't like a game that there's overt criticism, but I will take it. I will take the criticism and learn from it. So anyway, game number 2 in the books, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.